Hello, everybody. Um, I am taking this video on my phone like I used to a long time ago because I'm not real good at editing. Excuse me. And there's some things that I've been talking to people about that they just don't seem to understand. So I'm going to try very slowly to go over it so you can understand. This is on jw.org. My Book of Bible Stories, story number 99. And if we go down to the story, I want to show you something. So, this says, I'll walk you through it here. It is Thursday night now, 2 days later. Jesus and his 12 apostles have come to this large upstairs room to eat the Passover meal. And farther down here, the Passover meal is finished, but Jesus now begins another special meal. And then it describes how he adds on the Lord's evening meal to that, right? Okay. Now, I want to show you something else here. Let's see. Go back to I saved them all on here so I could show them to you easier. This is another place that I want to show you. Oh, come on. Internet's slow today. This is the Watchtower Study Edition, December 2013. This is a story of the memorial. And let's see if I can, oh yeah. Jesus had told the apostles to get the room ready for the Passover meal. He did not mention elaborate decorations. Instead, he likely wanted just a suitable, clean room. They would get it ready, certain items for the meal, including unleavened bread and red wine. After finishing the Passover meal, Jesus focused on those two emblems. Okay? I'm going to show you another one. Okay? This is in the book, What Does the Bible Really Teach? On jw.org. And starting here, Jesus instituted this observance on the night of the Jewish Passover in 33 CE. See that? Down here? Jesus celebrated the Passover with his apostles. He dismissed Judas and then instituted the Lord's evening meal. Now you notice in the Bible story book, What Does the Bible Teach? And also in the Watchtower, they explained that Jesus had the Passover with his apostles, right? Okay. Now this is something else I want to show you. This is the, dang it. Okay, let's see. My JW, yeah, see, it's gonna make noise. My JW Silver Bible, and we're gonna go to John 18, and over here in verse 28. Then they led Jesus from Caiaphas to the governor's residence. It was now early in the morning. This was after Jesus was arrested, after the meal he just had with his disciples. But they themselves did not enter into the governor's residence, so that they would not get defiled, but could eat the Passover. So you see, they were still waiting for the Passover. Jesus had been arrested already. He had already had the meal. Judas already turned him in, and he's already being led to the different people. But they did not enter into the governor's residence, so that they would not get defiled, but could eat the Passover. The Passover had not happened yet. And see, I got my link here. Matthew 26, verse 7. Let's go there. Matthew 26. I should have marked it right. Okay. This is going back to that same evening. On the first day of the unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover?" And then he described what he wanted them to do. "My appointed time is near. I will celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your home." So the disciples did as Jesus instructed them and prepared for the Passover. Now, what I want to explain is that if what people don't really understand is that the feasts and the holy days and all of that were assigned by God, and they told the Jewish people to follow these laws, do this every year, right? So every year they had to celebrate the Passover. But you can Google it if you want, you can look it up or research it, but I'm telling you, this is true. The Feast of Unleavened Bread starts the same day as the preparation day for Passover. So on preparation day is the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So all of the Jews had gone in their homes and removed every fermenting thing, yeast, anything that could raise dough, anything that could do that. They bring it outside their house and they burn it. During the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is 7-day feast, they are only allowed to have unleavened bread. So that was day 1 of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Then also they had to make preparation for the Passover. So Jesus told them to get a room to celebrate the Passover. Now, everybody knows that Jesus was the sacrificial lamb. So what I'm going to explain to you is the procedure that the Jews did for Passover. And you can Google it, look it up on the Jewish sites, whatever. What I'm saying is true, is that on the day of preparation, excuse me, they had to get everything ready for the Seder, which is the Passover meal. They had to get the wine, everything ready where they were going to do it, and they had to have their lamb ready. And then you have to remember that the Jewish laws go by the lunar calendar, and they start in the evening. So the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, they had no leavened bread, only unleavened bread in their homes or anywhere. It was a Jewish law. You had to do that. The leaven represents sin. So they had to remove all of that and make themselves pure. And just like the sacrificial lamb had to be perfect and blemish-free to be a suitable sacrifice for Passover. So the day of preparation, they would get the lamb and all that, and they would slaughter the lamb. And you know that on the first day there of preparation, where he told them to get that room, he told them to get it for the Passover, but that was just to tell people, because everyone was going to be celebrating the Passover. But he knew that him, Jesus, being the lamb that was going to be sacrificed, he wasn't going to be there for Passover. The meal that he had was a normal meal that they would have in the evening for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And everything was there already in place. So then they had the meal and went out to the garden. Jesus was arrested. He went around at sunset. They were eating, remember? And so at night they had gone out to the garden. Judas Iscariot came with soldiers and with torches, because it was dark. It's after dark. And all that night and into the morning, he was going back and forth between the different judges and governors and all that, trying to decide who the Jews could get to kill Jesus, because they couldn't do it. Well, it said there in John 18:28 that when they got to the governor's home the following morning, and mind you, this is the day that they're cooking the lamb. So that day they're cooking the lamb, because Passover starts at sunset. So early in the morning, he's at the governor's house. They did not want to go in the house because they were looking forward to having Passover and didn't want to defile themselves. So that by that afternoon, then, Jesus was on the cross, and he was killed, just like the sacrificial lambs that everyone had for Passover. Because they couldn't do that on Passover, because it was, it's a holy day. You don't work on a holy day like that. So you have to have everything done before. So they were slaughtering and cooking their lamb the same time that Jesus was on the cross and dying. They took him off of the cross to bury him before sunset, because at sunset, Passover started. Now, if Jesus actually had a Passover meal with his disciples the day before, the night before when he was arrested, remember? If he had it that night, he would have been breaking the law. And if he broke the Jewish law, he would not be pure. He would be defiled, and he would not make a perfect sacrifice. So there is no way by Jewish law that Jesus could have had an actual Passover dinner with his disciples. That the reason that they had wine and unleavened bread was because it was already the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and that went on for 8 days. That starts before and ends after the Passover. But people get confused and think it's the same thing. But actually, the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Passover are separate, but they run concurrently, together like that. So You can look it up, like I say, and find out if it's true. But I showed you in John that after he was arrested already and he was going to the governor's house, they did not want to defile themselves because they wanted to be clean for the Passover. So he had already eaten with his disciples. And that could not have been a Passover meal, because then he would have been breaking the Jewish law and would not have been a proper sacrifice as the lamb. Just no way that he could have done it. They had that room for the Passover, yes. But the Passover was on the evening of the day that he was killed. At sunset, Passover started. That's why they had to have him down from the cross and in the tomb before sunset. But anyway, I wanted to show you, I'm sorry about my voice, but I wanted to show you that Watchtower is teaching its people wrongly. He did not eat Passover with his disciples. He got the room for that purpose, yes. But please, if you doubt anything I say, get on the Jewish sites and look up the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And also Google, if you don't believe me, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, is it the same as Passover? And you'll find out that it's not. They're separate. So, just wanted to explain that to everybody. I don't know if I explained it right last time, but anyway, have a good night. Thanks for listening. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.